What is up, guys? It is Styx here, and today I'm going to be going over a very interesting new weapon that has just been released with this Iron Banner playlist, and that will be the Tusk of the Boar Waveframe Strand Grenade Launcher. This is the first Strand Waveframe we will be receiving, and it comes chock full with a bunch of lovely perks that I'm going to explain to you what you're going to be best interested in for PvP and PvE. It starts off with a base 100 blast radius, 69 velocity, 23 stability, 69 handling, and 68 reload speed. Like any other grenade launcher, it has one in the mag, and there are plenty of perks to help you out with that. Now, starting off with the barrel, I'm going to recommend all of these ones that increase your velocity without dragging down your other stats, such as linear compensator, quick launch, and smart drift control. The reason for this is velocity allows your shot to fire more quickly, and if your shot fires more quickly, then you deal that damage faster because wave frames take a second to do the wave. The one that I think is best for this overall is quick launch, also due to the handling increase, as this gives a plus 10 to your velocity and a plus 15 to your handling, whereas linear compensator only gives a plus 5 to your velocity and a plus 5 to your stability. For your magazine, I would recommend high velocity rounds, as that provides an increase to your velocity and your reload speed, which is very nice. But if you choose implosion rounds, it's not going to be a massive change either. It gives the same plus 10 increase to your velocity. It just takes down your blast radius a little bit, which affects the initial explosion, not the wave itself. Going into your first set of perks, there are a couple of very interesting options here for PvE and PvP. For PvP, I'm going to mostly be recommending Slideways and Enlightened Action. The reasons for this are Slideways partially reloads the magazine. As this is a grenade launcher, it's just going to reload it completely when you slide, and temporarily boosts your handling and stability. This can allow you to swap to another weapon a little bit faster, or it can just allow you to get your shot out that little bit faster. I like to run quick access sling on this weapon in PvP so far, and I have found a lot of interesting success with the Slideways perk. The other option that I think is a bit better is Enlightened Action. This is perfect for this wave frame and for grenade launchers in general, as dealing damage improves your reload speed and handling. This means that for the standard gameplay with a PvP waveframe, you are going to fire at the ground at an enemy, and then you're going to swap to something like a submachine gun, an auto rifle, a hand cannon, something that can quickly allow you to do enough damage to finish the person off. This Enlightened Action perk gives you up to 12 stacks, but usually you're probably going to be dealing with about 3 or 4 stacks at most, because they only last for 2 seconds. And that would give you around 15 handling and reload speed, which is enough to, if combined with a couple of other items like quick launch, make this an instant swap. And as such, I would highly recommend Enlightened Action if you're planning on using this in PvP, as it's going to give you the best enjoyment with the swap playstyle. In PvE, there are a lot more very interesting implications for this entire column. First of all, Slideways is going to just in general not be as useful in PvE because it has a cooldown, unlike Slideshot. So you can use it to reload every so often, but I don't know if it's worth the entire perk there. Whereas Envious Assassin, defeating targets with other weapons before drawing this one, transfers ammo to the magazine from reserves, which can overflow the magazine based on the number of targets defeated. Now, I believe they've announced either a recent nerf or they're planning to nerf Envious Assassin, but I genuinely think on this kind of waveframe, you're probably going to be pairing it with some kind of scout or SMG or something that's going to be getting kills, or if you're doing the classic old Gambit loadout, which is 2 waveframes, then you're going to be slaying with your other weapon, which is going to give you those magazine overflows. Another interesting idea is if you are a Banner of War Titan, for example, you can run Grave Robber, which melee final blows reload this weapon's magazine from reserves. You hit with your melee on a few adds, kill them, you have a tangle, you throw it, you use your wave frame, and you're just doing tons of AoE strand damage, you're applying unraveling rounds, the whole deal. Another option that I think is interesting is Slice. Casting your class ability allows this weapon to sever targets on hit for a brief duration. This is the next 5 hits because unfortunately it's up to a maximum number of targets. Now, this is what works against it, as another weapon would just be able to do the same thing with Slice. It's not like it being a wave frame means more enemies get hit, so more enemies get sliced, as unfortunate as that is. So do keep that in mind. And finally, Enlightened Action, once again, is very useful in PvE for that reload speed, simply because it is going to constantly be refreshing if you're using this in PvE, as you're going to be constantly hitting enemies, you're going to be reloading, and just letting out that damage. So the best options for overall play, I'm going to say, in PvE are going to be Envious Assassin and Enlightened Action, and I would recommend using Grave Robber on that build, like I said, a Banner of War Titan who is using it in that specific way, and there is some combos in there that I'm going to explain in just a moment. Slice, I can see some niche usage as well, but it would probably work with very specific strand builds. Now, in the second perk column, we do have a few options here which are very, very interesting and potentially very powerful. There's the ever boring and not super useful Vorpal weapon. You're not going to want to run that on this weapon, in my genuine opinion. There is Deconstruct, which does more damage to barricades, turrets, stasis crystals, and basically any objects created in the field and vehicles, which is once again not a ton useful on this type of weapon. You could see some potential damage with it because it's a 40% increase, and the refunding ammunition could be interesting if you were to hit several crystals with one wave, for example. But I'm unsure of how it would work in that specific setup because I did not get a deconstruct roll yet. Swashbuckler is a perk that I'm going to say has interesting use. I have used this perk in PvE and PvP. I've used it on the Banner of War Titan build I mentioned, which does allow it to do some pretty increased damage, and that is very significant. And I've also used it on a PvP strand setup, which I will also link to up in a card or something up above the screen. And in that build, I would basically use it by firing at someone and then doing a little bit of a submachine gun and then killing them with my knife and quickly swapping back to my grenade launcher while the knife is going out there and killing them. And this would put enough of a damage bonus on the grenade launcher that when I go around to kill the next opponent, when I fire at the ground and let loose at them, they're significantly weaker after the grenade launcher shot. And the next option, Bait and Switch, I don't think it's going to be super duper useful on this type of weapon unless you're running all ad clear and you're constantly switching between different ad clearing weapons, like that Gambit setup I told you about, or like that Gambit setup I briefly mentioned where it's like, you know, you're running double special, their wave frames, and like a machine gun or something. I don't think Bait and Switch is going to be an amazing perk on this weapon for PvE, though it could definitely be usable and used in niche scenarios. Now comes to the two most exciting perks in my personal opinion for this weapon. The first is Hatchling. Rapidly defeating targets with this weapon spawns a threadling at the target's location. So this applies to 3 kills within 3 seconds of each. You can easily, with a wave frame GL, get like 10, 15 kills. So if Hatchling works on this weapon the way that I think it does, this is probably going to be the best perk for strand players, which, in all honesty, this weapon is not better than Forbearance if you are not playing strand and working that into your build, because Forbearance is very nice with Ambitious Assassin and with the crafted perks and all of that, and this weapon has perks that can be enhanced once Final Shape comes out, but it still does not have quite the same level of perks that Forbearance has, and everyone's going to get access to Forbearance next week, so don't worry too much if you really hate Iron Banner and just want a waveframe GL that's decent. You can wait for Forbearance. The other option here being Chain Reaction. That is your PvE perk. It is going to get a pretty significant nerf. I believe it's like a 30% damage decrease or 20%, something around there, as well as an explosion decrease of like 15%. But even without that nerf, it's going to be very effective. It's going to be very useful. It's going to be roughly the same amount of use in lower level encounters In upper level encounters, it might not be as useful simply because the chain reaction is going to deal a bit less damage, but it's still going to be very useful and worth it for a singular perk slot on a weapon that can potentially kill like 20 things at once. So overall, the perks I'm going to recommend are going to be Quick Launch in the barrel, High Velocity Rounds in the magazine, Envious Assassin for the first perk, and Hatchling in the fourth column. If you're running a Banner of War melee build Titan, I'm going to instead recommend Grave Robber and Swashbuckler, as Grave Robber will allow you to reload the weapon with your melee, and Swashbuckler, when you get that melee kill that reloads the weapon, you get a 5 times damage bonus, which is 33.3%. Very significant in PvE. And of course, if you are in PvP, I'm going to recommend Skulking Wolf, the origin trait that while at low health, Guardian Final Blows with this weapon grant enhanced radar and remove you from opposing radar. And in PvE, I'm going to recommend Field Tested, which increases your stability, range, handling, and reload speed as you defeat targets and deal damage with this weapon. Up to 5 stacks, which provides to you a very decent bonus. The best masterwork, in my opinion, for this is going to be velocity or reload speed, depending on what you're going for. And I hope you guys really enjoy this weapon and have enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Peace.